Did you know that you can't own a planet? And the first person who does will insist very hard that they don't. So what's going on? Property in space can get pretty weird. Hear me out. International law is very clear that a country can't own a planet, and most reasonable people understand that to mean a person can't either. But they can land on it, build a permanent base, extract its resources, stop other people interfering with their operation, and sell everything they dig up. Which does raise the question, how much of a planet can you control before you have to stop pretending you don't own it? Fine, let's try to own a planet. First idea, buy some land. People have been selling plots on the moon for decades, and spoilers, just like buying a square meter of Scotland to call yourself a lord, it's a scam. The Scottish word laird isn't just lord in a Scottish accent, it means more like squire, an estate owner, basically means landlord, and you don't want to be associated with those people, do you? But you can go online right now and buy yourself a delightful certificate declaring that you own an acre of the moon's surface. Unfortunately, this gives you roughly the same legal authority as naming a star after your dog. They're all scams. If you can't see that, I have a great deal for you for a bridge in Brooklyn. Your certificate may say Sea of Tranquility, but instead of this, what you actually own is this. This is because of the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which is the foundation of international space law. It says that outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, cannot be claimed by any country by means of use or occupation or by any other means. And yes, that means even if you licked it. And planting a flag doesn't count either. If it did, the moon would be American, Antarctica would belong to whichever expedition packed the most fabric, and this butt would belong to Brazil. Besides, I'm pretty sure dog rules predate ownership treaties, and while Neil Armstrong was the first guy to step on the moon, Buzz Aldrin was the first one to pee on the moon.
Yes, that's right.
Of course, it was inside the spacesuit, but I think it still counts. Buzz owns the moon. And by the way, the suit was designed for it, so it's not like he was so scared of meeting a little green man that he had a little accident. I'm pretty sure. The treaty was written during the Cold War, when the main concern was stopping America and the Soviet Union from turning the moon into the least convenient military base. It says countries can't claim celestial territory, but it is much less clear about whether private individuals or corporations can. One argument says that if your country cannot own lunar land, it cannot grant lunar land to you. I can't sell you Liechtenstein because despite my numerous complaints, Liechtenstein doesn't belong to me. The opposing argument is essentially the treaty specifically says national appropriation and SpaceX isn't technically a nation. Yet. So the deed failed, the flag failed, and the dog rules remain legally untested. So stop trying to claim the land, start a company and ask a different question. What can you take? So you probably can't own a part of the moon's surface, but the company doesn't need to. What about the stuff it finds there? There's almost certainly no oil on the moon, because if there were, America would never have stopped going. But just in case, in 2015 the United States passed a law saying American citizens, including companies of course, can own, use and sell resources they extract from asteroids and other celestial bodies. Luxembourg later passed a similar law because if there's one thing Luxembourg understands, it's making assets legally belong to someone without asking too many questions. So now land and start digging. These laws don't allow you to claim ownership of the asteroid itself, you merely own the material after you remove it. You cannot own Mercury, but you might be able to dismantle it and keep all the pieces. Maybe that's why the tech bros are so hot on building a Dyson sphere, because one of the most popular proposals for building one is using Mercury for materials. You have to privatize a planet one rock at a time, because the legal problem with owning a planet is that they come pre-assembled. Some disassembly required. The Artemis Accords, a set of principles now signed by dozens of countries, also support extracting and using space resources. They argue that doing so doesn't automatically amount to claiming sovereignty. So you can't own the land, but you can put the land in bags and carry them home until there's no land left. Makes perfect sense. Next, choose carefully where to put the equipment. Some areas near the lunar South Pole may contain accessible water ice, which can provide drinking water, fun with slip and slides, oxygen, and even rocket fuel. Some locations also receive much more sunlight for solar power. There are only so many useful parts of the moon. It's location, 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 because the Accords also introduce the idea of safety zones. If you're operating somewhere on the moon, other missions should coordinate with you and keep enough distance to avoid harmful interference. This builds on the earlier work of every German tourist waking up at 6 a.m. to leave a towel on a sun chair. That's because lunar dust can damage equipment, and when you land rockets it throws debris everywhere. Officially, a safety zone is not an exclusion zone. It's supposed to be temporary, reasonably sized, and preserve everyone's right to access the area. It's less keep out and more please don't land the rocket here while Frank is watering his potatoes. So technically, even if you put your equipment around the best ice deposit, everyone else is still free to approach. They just have to coordinate with you and avoid disturbing your operation. They don't exactly need your permission to enter, but they may need to schedule a Zoom call with you, which is objectively worse. It isn't legally your territory, but it looks like your territory, functions like your territory, and remains practically under your control for as long as you're using it. So nothing like property except for all the main features of property. Basically, the Artemis Accords took 18 pages to explain dibs. Your company now owns the machinery, it owns everything it extracts, and it has become the operation everybody else must dance around. But it owns none of the land. Want to go bigger? Attach rockets to an asteroid and redirect it to a convenient orbit, essentially parallel parking a mountain. You own the spacecraft, you own the material you extract, you control where the asteroid goes, and approaching it may endanger your operation. So, do you own the asteroid? No. But let's see anyone try to take it from you. At that point, what would it even mean to say your company doesn't own it? Ownership isn't magic. The molecules of the kick-ass Kardashev Energy Solutions t-shirt that you're about to order, they won't even know they belong to you, but in every legal sense, they will. On Earth, ownership comes with backup. Governments recognize claims, courts settle disputes, and cops show up if Kevin keeps stealing t-shirts. None of that infrastructure currently exists on Mars.
I said Mars.
If two companies dispute the same crater, there is no Martian land registry, there's no local court, and there's no police officer who's willing to drive 225 million kilometers because someone moved a fence. At least for now. Countries are responsible for their companies playing Grand Theft Geology out in space, so disputes would be handled back on Earth. But a permanent settlement could be months away, and everybody inside it would depend on the machinery to stay alive. So out there, practical control will matter a lot more than legal wording. Whoever owns the landing pad controls who can arrive. Whoever controls the oxygen controls who can stay. And whoever builds the communications network gets to charge everyone $8.99 a minute. The first company to own a planet won't do it by planting a flag. They'll just build infrastructure and then say everybody's welcome to use it. For a fee. You don't have to pay rent for the land, you just pay for the oxygen, heating, radiation protection, and permission to enter the only airlock. Legally, Mars will remain a province of all mankind, but practically it'll be subscription as a service. So, congratulations. Now you own a planet. I mean, legally you don't. Of course not. That would be illegal. You just own the only way to arrive, the only way to breathe, and the only way to get indoors and outdoors. And your legal team will keep reminding you to not say you own it if you get interviewed. None of this is inevitable. The fact that space law is unfinished is pretty fucked up, but it also means that we haven't lost the game yet to Elon Musk. When the Outer Space Treaty was written, in a rare outbreak of moral foresight, we shitty humans did something surprisingly decent. Before any country could actually seize another world, we agreed that none should. It survived the Cold War, quite a few actual wars, and it even survived billionaires reading science fiction like a shopping catalog. So far. That was a good start. But now we need rules for the part where the companies actually arrive. We could require shared access to essential resources, prevent permanent safety zones from becoming private kingdoms, tax commercial extraction and use that money for everyone, including countries without their own rockets. Although, when you start talking about taxing corporations, a Dyson swarm stops sounding like the unrealistic idea in all of this. The first permanent structure on the moon would probably just be a mailbox registered in the Caymans. We invented ownership a long time ago, but we never really did a 2.0. We still have a chance to fix some of the bugs before we ship it to the rest of the universe. I mean, space could become corporate feudalism, or it could be the first place where white people arrive without immediately fucking it all up. This is still a very small channel, so liking, hyping, subscribing, they all make a huge difference if you like this video even a little. I need to grow it fast if I want to have any chance of beating SpaceX to Mars so I can pee on it. I promise I'll be a responsible and benevolent planet owner. T-shirts below, link to my stand-up special in the description and on the card. Thank you very much for watching. Until we meet again next week, here are some videos YouTube picked for you. Ciao.
Hippity hoppity, hippity hoppity, hippity hopping over hill and dale. Da 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 da. hippity hopping along.